Hi there, hello, salut, bonjour. I hope you're doing very well from wherever you're watching at this moment, despite the uncertain times for those who are in Cameroon. As always, it's a unique privilege for me to connect with you as we try to make sense of what's going on around the world, specifically in the Republic of Cameroon, especially following the presidential elections that took place on October 12, 2025. Today is November 6, 2025. And as I tell you this, Cameroon would never be the same again after today. It's a day that will go down in Cameroon history with a lot of ink for different reasons. And I'll tell you why. First of all, we do know that as we speak, President Paul Biya has been sworn in for the 9th time for an 8th mandate after 43 years in power at the age of 92 in a country with a youthful population that is close to 70%. Let that sink in for a moment. But you know, the country he intends to govern is not the country he stood before today. What we witnessed this afternoon was not just a ceremony. It was a presidency protected by walls, by guns, by instructions, not by the people. And outside those walls, another presidency exists, one claimed in the streets, in the ballot box, and in the hearts of millions. Issa Tchiroma Bakary. So, two presidents, one country, one crisis of legitimacy has ensued. But you know what? Let's begin, not with opinion, but with the facts of the last 24 hours. We do know that while the ceremony was going on, in Douala, a group of youth gathered with a banner of Issa Tchiroma Bakary's name on it. And they also had images of those who had lost their lives because of this post-electoral crisis. And so many things in between. But you know what? This swearing-in ceremony of the incumbent Paul Biya that took place at the National Assembly today was a full ceremony in compliance with Article 7 of Cameroon's constitution. But here are the red flags that tell the real story. All military and security personnel were forbidden to come into that building with firearms, even those that were supposed to be for security purposes. And one has to just wonder, that has never happened in the last 43 years. Analysts say the regime fears not just the opposition, but its own army. And yes, it aligns with Tchiroma's own claim that part of the military is loyal to the people and not the regime. So the victory speech itself was some sort of a desperate attempt, according to some independent observers. Because inasmuch as the Cameroonian people did not see the proclaimed president across the country at the side of those that are mourning, addressing pressing issues that are affecting the life of the nation, it is as if to say that the governance of the presidency of Cameroon stopped at 11:59 p.m. on October 11th, 2025. Because after President Paul Biya, who was still president at the time, went to cast his ballot as a candidate on that fateful Sunday on October 12th and responded to a few questions from the back, shot from the back. You know, the video was from the back, not from the front. We wonder how the national station was not able to get a camera front-facing, a proper scrum to interview the president. But he was answering questions from the side. And that alone left so many media professionals perplexed, to say the least. However, that is not the focus for today. We just want to highlight the fact that ever since that outing of a few words, Cameroonians have not seen or heard from their president in flesh and blood, physically, till date. And only a few, the privileged, those who had invites to be in this particular space, and those that are meeting later on for the banquet are only the few privileged Cameroonians that would have access to see the president up close. The rest will see him driving by, just like they saw him driving by in the streets of Yaoundé. As always, the streets are blocked for 2 hours. Nobody, more than 2 hours sometimes. No hawkers, nobody outside selling left, right, no, cleaned up. So it is by protocol that the city is put on lockdown every time the president has to go from one place to another. Yeah, when he travels out of the country, it's worse because he goes right to the Simalan airport. So everywhere is blocked for hours on end because of one man's motorcade. The man of the people, le père de la nation, who is never close to his people one-on-one, but at a distance, filmed carefully, curated and crafted for specific viewers. However, let's put that aside because Cameroonians are used to that. They're used to not seeing their president. They're used to being governed by high instructions. They're used to being governed by tweets and posts on social media. They're used to being governed by surrogates explaining all day long how the president is everywhere and at any time. Within the last 7 years in particular, we can count with one hand how many times Cameroonians have seen their president physically, in public, performing any state duty that is worthy of their vote. And you can see in the video for yourself that as soon as that vehicle went up that ramp and the First Lady stepped out, they cut to a long shot. And during that long shot, it was enough time to whisk the president into the National Assembly and therefore cut to another video of him walking, and you see just a silhouette of him and his feet. And then when the people tried to film, they were chased out, and you could see the protocol telling this person to go out, to move, not to film, because it's all carefully curated. Even in a confined space like that, what are they hiding from the Cameroonian people? The Cameroonian people have voted for a president that they cannot touch and feel. He's highly guarded. No access, no camera view. Everything is scrutinized. And yet, he's going to govern for 7 more years. No, not govern, rule for 7 more years, because Cameroon has now become a kingdom. 50 years. 50 years.
L'honneur de vous prier de bien vouloir vous lever, car voici venu le moment tant attendu, le moment de votre serment.
Comment? Mettez-vous debout, nous sommes en public. Maintenant? Oui, maintenant. Je dois me lever. Oui, mettez-vous debout.
You see images of the swearing-in ceremony where the person who is supposed to govern them for the next 7 years doesn't know that it's time to stand up and take the oath, sitting right next to the person who is reading a speech on loudspeaker. Broad daylight in the afternoon. Oh my, oh my. I'm short of words. But you know, it's something that would traumatize many Cameroonians to imagine that they are powerless because they don't understand what recourse they have. They went to the ballot box and voted for change, and yet their victory was taken away from them, confiscated, and they tried to step out in protest. They were shot. And they tried to stay home and mourn. They were forced out. What is left for them? Is this some form of modern day? I don't want to use the S word. Is this what it is?
I do so swear.
And therefore, dear Cameroonians home and abroad, dear Africa, friends of Cameroonians, global citizens across the world, you've listened for yourselves. You've seen for yourselves. What do you make of this? Do you think that this is the president that will govern Cameroon for the next 7 years? Or he's been manipulated and put in place by a cabal or a clique of a few people that hold the reins of power and are using the age of this elderly person who is supposed to be venerated according to African culture, who is supposed to be respected as a patriarch, yet they are soiling his legacy, or at least he has allowed his legacy to be soiled because he put these people around him. One of the core qualities of a good leader is the choice of his entourage. And here we are seeing a prime example of what happens when people stay in office for too long and trying to govern a country that is so young. But again, if you just go by the pomp and fanfare surrounding this glass palace, as they call it, Palais de Verre, which was newly built by the Chinese government and donated to the government of Cameroon, and then quickly seized by the regime of Yaoundé and named after Paul Biya himself. A national assembly named after a sitting president. That's democracy in Cameroon for you. Because if you try to critique the fact that Cameroon, since independence, with all the resources and the beautiful building that was left by President Amadou Ahidjo, President Paul Biya was unable to build one for himself. He waited for the Chinese people to donate it to the Cameroon government, to the people of Cameroon, and then his people put his name on it. And a democratic, the institution that's supposed to be the most neutral in the whole country, his name is on it. And yet somebody's going to tell me, well, it was thanks to him under his mandate that the Chinese people offered this. No. A national assembly is a symbol of the people's sovereignty. One of the symbols. And a lot of things take place at the National Assembly. You wouldn't allow a foreign government to build one for you because the microphones wired in that system, put in there, for many reasons. People who know geopolitics will tell you that you have to be extremely careful because between states, they are not friends and enemies. They are just people that have common interests. And therefore, one will be weary. You would need to have your own technicians because it's not for nothing that people that are not citizens in certain countries cannot hold certain functions. You need to be properly vetted to be in certain spaces, to perform certain duties. And the National Assembly, in a functional democracy, has a system called Hansard. Because everything that is said there, when they have in-camera sessions, debating issues that affect the life of the nation. Because there are times when the assembly is public and there are times when the assembly is not public. There are committees. There are very important issues. It's something that we cannot discuss about it today, but having said that, let's move on to other updates. Multiple reliable sources confirm that Issa Tchiroma Bakary is back in Cameroon. He's doing very well after a brief transit through Nigeria. There have been rumors that he was arrested by the Nigerian Secret Service or military and then, questioned and released and so on and so forth. He would tell that side of the story when he's ready. But we do know and can confirm that yes, he was in Nigeria. Yes, he's back in Cameroon. And as for how his interaction with the Nigerian authorities went, we don't have the full details. However, some top members of Project C, like veteran Eric Tinje, can confirm that Issa Tchiroma Bakary is back in Cameroon and he's pursuing his next move. During this particular time, you have to pay attention and read in between the lines, because the communication has to also take into account security concerns. And therefore, you just have to stick to some facts and stay away from speculation. And we can tell you that it's something that has been well handled, and he's doing okay. He's expected to take an oath very soon, and we're probably going to see that in a video. That I can tell you that it won't be a public ceremony, but it would have all the symbolism in it, because that is supposed to be the next, logical move. But again, stay put as we continue to wait, because we do know that his oath would be the alternative to some constitutional authority, lawyers, clergy, or elected officials. Because in Kenya, 2017, Ivory Coast 2010, the Gambia 2017, we've told you that already. Because when lawmakers and the courts lose legitimacy, the people create one. And that could be seen throughout the 3 days of ghost towns that was called by Issa Tchiroma Bakary. In at least 6 to 7 of the regions, it was a success, meaning that the people acted in full maturity, knowing their rights and freedoms. And we saw that in the exchanges that people had with the different senior divisional officers, the threats coming from the DOs, the people in uniforms, the mayors in some cities. You could even see the mayor in Douala go at Marché Central, stand there and tell people that they are going to shut down their shops and put a seal on it if they don't open by tomorrow. And they did not open. Shops in that same spot where he stood and made those statements, they did not open. And of course, observers and critics in that same city of Douala were quick to point out that this same mayor, the super mayor as they call him, has been unable to deliver on all the promises that he promised the people, especially before the campaign. There are many roads that have not been touched. So many things have been abandoned, but they were quick to talk to shop owners to open their shops because they want to save face. You even had some sellers, those who use the pavements to sell their goods. They were very critical of this mayor. They said, this mayor has not been letting them breathe. On normal days, they'll be chased and their goods seized and destroyed or even confiscated for different reasons, because they don't want to see them around the peripheries of the market shops. Since they don't own shops within the market, they try to hawk around. But now they're asking them to come out because they want to save face. They are always using the people for their gains to score political points. It's so unfortunate. And you could see the same thing today across the city of Yaoundé. You had people brought out to stand by the roadside as the motorcade of the incumbent Paul Biya was going around the city. You had banners across the city with fancy words about peace, about unity, about vivre ensemble, and Cameroon, l'État est debout, and all those things. Trying to convince who? Do you need to convince your own people that they are in a country that is peaceful? The parade, the motorcade, the amount of vehicles at a time when gas has been scarce because of the crisis. Everything for show. And that has caught the criticism of independent observers and some analysts who say they are not doing that for the Cameroonian people. They are doing that for the international community to see that this president has some form of legitimacy. Whereas we could tell you that from Bafoussam to Bafang to Garoua to Chang, so many businesses were grounded to a halt. They were grounded to a stop. No traffic, low traffic, if at all. Students went to school in some cases. In other places, nothing. Teachers went to school to wait for students that never showed up. You even had officials drive around the city with megaphones, assuring parents to send their kids to school and people to open businesses, and so on and so forth, for 3 days. a country that voted 53.6% for an incumbent that has been in office for 43 years plus, and today just got sworn in to take another 7 years to make it 50. And we tell you that though in Yaoundé, as usual, resistance was weaker, but only because ghost towns are now a political test of courage, not convenience. So we all know that Yaoundé is not where you would see any form of public disobedience, because the crackdown is intense. There's a machine of the state. All the military deployment. In fact, the military tribunal is right there. And again, the same President Paul Biya in the early 90s, under the same tense political climate, with the call of multi-party politics, the ghost towns, les villes mortes, he was quick to say, quand Yaoundé respire, le Cameroun vit. Oh well, there's a lot that can be said about this particular swearing-in ceremony. You know, the filming tactics, you know, the footage itself, there's a lot. But you know what? Let's move on to other updates. And we can inform you that Issa Tchiroma Bakary has released a very important letter that was signed by at least 9 members of Congress and addressed to Honorable Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And that letter details everything about Cameroon's election crisis, whatever happened before, during, and after this presidential election. As you can see, it highlights a lot of key points that puts Cameroon on the radar of members of Congress in the United States. And therefore, lawmakers can come up with a policy paper on the case of Cameroon. This is a very strong one. And if President Trump takes hold of this matter, you've seen what he's done and all what he's been saying about Nigeria. You've seen the direct message he sent to the Nigerian government. So once again, we do understand that let's not kid ourselves. Nobody expects anybody outside to come and save Cameroonians. But we're just telling you that in the Committee of Nations, there are times when the interests of your lenders can become so big that they step foot on your territory and make bigger demands. And although that is not the wish of any Cameroonian, to have another foreign entity come in and try to resolve that which can be resolved by Cameroonians, but sometimes with the way the regime is moving, it almost feels like that's exactly what they want, because they're not giving way to show any signs of negotiation or peaceful resolution within Cameroon. But again, that's what geopoliticians and strategists, as well as analysts and independent observers, are saying. So we can just tell you this much, because even in the Vanguard, Issa Tchiroma Bakary penned an op-ed that was very clear with a lot of strong points. It's almost like a full speech of an inauguration. We are going to bring you details of that in a subsequent episode. That is to tell you that the era of silence is over. The world is watching. And in other updates, just like we informed you previously, that Stand Up for Cameroon, headed by Edith Kawala, is organizing a public mass that is underway currently in Douala in memory of those who have lost their lives throughout the different crises that Cameroon has experienced, especially this one in particular. And when mothers come together to mourn the loss of children, because young people have been killed. So to you, Cameroonians home and abroad, brothers and sisters across the globe, Africans, people of goodwill, global citizens across the world, if you believe this conversation matters, share this video, subscribe to the platform, and leave a comment. Give a thumbs up and a like. If you're watching from Cameroon, stay safe, stay informed, stay united as one block. If you're in the diaspora, your voice matters more than ever. Keep amplifying it. Support other networks and platforms that are doing the same thing. Continue to echo your voices. There's so many platforms that are doing meaningful work to help the cause of Cameroonians. Join them. Hit the like, comment, subscribe, as we keep telling you. That is what grows every platform. Somebody jokingly told me, do you know you can reach 10,000 subscribers within 24 hours? I said, well, I can't doubt. I want to believe that you can do it. With your help, we can do it. Let's do it. 10,000 subscribers in 2 days, in 24 hours, 1 day. Can we do it? Is that a promise? Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. I believe we can. And there you have it. Until the next one, may God bless Cameroon.